The turn of the century saw Chicago rapidly transforming into a booming industrial metropolis, a magnet for ambitious businessmen and restless adventurers alike. By 1893, this burgeoning city was positioned at the epicenter of global attention due to the massive World's Fair set to take place within its confines. Amidst this explosion of architecture and human ambition, certain structures operated quietly, seemingly existing outside the general clamor of progress. H.H. Holmes established a hotel that served as both a legitimate commercial venture and something far more ominous in its reputation. The setting itself became steeped in suggestion and local myth, drawing people to its imposing facade while concealing untold secrets within its very foundations. Holmes operated his establishment as more than mere lodging. It was presented to the public as a sophisticated haven for travelers and merchants conducting business in the bustling city. Visitors were drawn by its convenience and seeming grandeur, believing them to be staying in a typical late Victorian hotel environment. However, whispers soon began to circulate regarding the true nature of the building's construction and internal layout. These rumors suggested that the edifice contained numerous hidden passages and secret rooms, features far beyond what was required for normal habitation. It allowed him to conduct his business with an unusual degree of privacy and seclusion from the outside world. The presence of the Chicago World's Fair injected an unprecedented level of energy, curiosity, and transient population into the immediate vicinity of Holmes's hotel. The flurry of visitors passing through the area provided a constant stream of potential guests, masking any unusual activity within the premises. While most were focused on the exhibits at the sprawling fairgrounds, they overlooked the secretive routines taking place just blocks away in the hotel. This period of intense civic celebration and massive construction served to draw public attention outward while allowing Holmes to operate with relative impunity within the building's walls. The architecture of the hotel itself became central to its growing sinister reputation among local citizens and investigators. It was said that much of the structure's design accommodated activities far beyond simple hospitality, pointing toward passages and hidden chambers designed for discreet operation. These architectural elements fueled speculation about the true character of the property, creating an aura of danger around the otherwise profitable enterprise. The physical details of the building seemed to match the rumors, leading some observers to believe that nothing in its layout was accidental or openly displayed. The fragile veneer of legality surrounding his operations began to crack when an investigation shifted its focus away from simple questionable clientele toward outright financial malfeasance. Specifically, Holmes found himself involved in inquiries related to insurance fraud, which was connected directly to a death involving one of his business partners. This legal entanglement marked the serious turning point for him, moving criminal suspicion into the realm of formal law enforcement action. Such accusations provided powerful leverage for authorities seeking answers about the unsettling rumors surrounding the hotel and its secretive nature. Following his arrest on the charges of insurance fraud, Holmes was forced into a position where he eventually made confessions detailing multiple acts of violence that had occurred within the hotel's history. Although historians continue to dispute the exact number of victims involved in these alleged crimes, the weight of the accumulated evidence against him remained profound. Adding to the mystery and eventual conclusion of his life, the very building became consumed by fire in 1895, before any comprehensive archaeological effort could fully confirm the extensive claims made about its elaborate hidden passages. After the destructive inferno claimed the hotel's facade and interior in 1895, the trail of physical evidence vanished into ash and smoke. This catastrophic loss profoundly complicated the existing investigations, forcing law enforcement and investigators to rely heavily on written testimony and conflicting accounts. Despite the architectural tragedy, the depth of the accusations surrounding H.H. Holmes remained potent, building a massive circumstantial case against him. The confessions he provided detailing acts within those hidden rooms became central pillars in the prosecution's arguments. Prosecutors meticulously focused on piecing together a narrative from these recollections, trying to validate every claim of passage and secret chamber. This inability to confirm the elaborate architectural details through excavation left a permanent cloud of historical dispute over the actual scope of his criminal enterprise. The legal process thus navigated between extraordinary claims and utterly consumed physical reality. The initial accusations that finally secured Holmes's arrest were rooted not in murder charges alone, but in complex matters of financial impropriety. Authorities aggressively pursued the threads of insurance fraud linked directly to the death of one of his business associates. This legal maneuver proved highly effective, giving law enforcement a solid, non-disputed pathway into his personal affairs and inner dealings. The investigation necessitated a deep dive into ledgers, contracts, and the financial movements connected to the hotel's operation in the booming Chicago economy. These financial inquiries created immense pressure, forcing Holmes to confront authorities regarding these business failures and associated deaths. His cooperation under duress eventually yielded deeply disturbing admissions regarding his pattern of alleged violence, shifting the focus back toward the human cost hidden beneath his apparent veneer of legitimate commerce. As the investigation progressed following the devastating fire, the weight of multiple accusations bore down upon Holmes's public life. Despite the lack of tangible evidence remaining from the infamous secret passages or hidden rooms, the accumulated body of circumstantial evidence proved staggering in its breadth. The focus shifted repeatedly to the consistency and veracity of the admissions he made under intense scrutiny from authorities. Prosecutors built their case around this pattern of confession, leveraging the severity of the alleged crimes against him. Every mention of a victim and every description of an activity within the hotel was weighed heavily in court proceedings. These legal battles served as a public reckoning for the secrets that had been kept within the structure's walls throughout the preceding years. The mounting pressure created an inescapable narrative of guilt among those who pursued justice. The legal proceedings moved inexorably toward a definitive conclusion regarding his life and liberty. Faced with such powerful circumstantial evidence concerning multiple acts of violence, the judicial system began its methodical process of judgment. Every detail regarding his alleged criminal history, from initial sightings in the hotel to the details of his business partner's death, was catalogued and presented to the court. The culmination of these investigations positioned him for a final reckoning with established law. The legal machinery, driven by mounting public fear and investigation efforts, ultimately concluded that the accumulation of accusations was too substantial to ignore. This progression signaled that despite the physical erasure of the hotel, the judicial process would still reach its conclusive endpoint in Chicago. The culmination of the years of investigation and legal maneuvering brought Holmes to his final appointment with justice. In 1896, the execution date arrived, marking the endpoint for one of Chicago's most infamous historical figures. The city community watched as the man whose activities were so intertwined with the hotel's dark past faced the ultimate penalty prescribed by law. Though the precise number of victims remains a subject of scholarly disagreement today, the weight of the accusations and confessions that preceded this day was undeniable. This final moment closed the chapter on the immediate era of fear surrounding the murder castle, sealing his fate in the annals of Chicago crime history. The execution served as both a public spectacle and a definitive judicial closure for the initial wave of panic. Following his ultimate demise in 1896, H.H. Holmes left behind not just a death, but a lingering enigma defined by unanswered questions. The physical ruin of the hotel itself ensured that much was forever lost to time and fire. Historians continue to pore over the available evidence, eternally debating both the exact number of victims involved in his alleged crimes and the full scope of hidden passages within the structure. These unresolved elements ensure that Holmes's story remains a powerful fixture in American true crime law and local history curricula. The mystery endures through conflicting accounts and fragmented testimony, solidifying his controversial status. His life narrative exists now as a blend of verifiable fact, the insurance fraud charges and the execution, and enduring speculation about the lost depths beneath the Chicago earth. The year was 1893, and Chicago was dominated by the massive spectacle of the World's Fair, transforming into a dizzying monument to industrial ambition and human ingenuity. Amidst this backdrop of unprecedented architectural marvels and crowds, H.H. Holmes operated his hotel, which quickly became more than just lodging for fair attendees. It transformed into an epicenter of dark activity. The very veneer of respectable enterprise masked the horrific scope of events unfolding within its walls. Travelers arrived drawn by the promise of a perfect World's Fair experience, unaware that they were entering a structure where unimaginable crimes were being systematically perpetrated behind seemingly normal daily operations. This initial period of intense public visibility created the perfect cover, allowing the deadly machinations to proceed under the guise of Chicago's greatest modern exhibition. The hotel itself became notorious not just for its transient clientele but for the secretive details of its construction and hidden internal spaces. Allegations persisted concerning numerous concealed rooms, passages, and subterranean passages that defied simple architectural explanation. These structural secrets suggested a meticulous planning process, a complex network designed to facilitate activities away from view. Investigators years later focused heavily on these alleged subterranean complexities, trying to reconstruct pathways that simply should not have existed in the building's documented blueprints. The sheer scope of supposed internal deception made the structure itself integral to the mystery. It was believed by many observers that the architecture was as deceptive and complex as the crimes committed within its seemingly opulent facade. As the period unfolded during the fair and following it, suspicion regarding the unusual activity within the premises began to accumulate among local authorities. The sheer volume of guests passing through the establishment meant that any aberrant patterns of life or death would inevitably draw scrutiny. Investigators started noticing irregularities in the accounts, discrepancies in how people disappeared from the bustling environment without a trace. These mounting suspicions eventually coalesced around questions concerning the hotel's financial dealings and its operational stability. The initial focus slowly shifted from merely investigating general crime to examining the institutional framework of the establishment itself. This gradual build-up of investigative pressure proved crucial, chipping away at Holmes's protective veil of perceived legality. The turning point in the investigation came when authorities focused on financial misconduct rather than purely criminal acts. Specifically, charges of insurance fraud connected directly to a partner's death provided the legal leverage that ultimately led to Holmes's arrest. This accusation shifted the focus from general suspicion to concrete, prosecutable offenses within the law. Proving the fraud required delving into intricate business records and establishing details surrounding the supposed passing of his associate. By cornering him on financial crimes rather than solely relying on circumstantial evidence of violence, prosecutors built a solid case that demanded his surrender. These legal proceedings became the immediate catalyst for unraveling the darker aspects of his lifestyle. Following his apprehension and facing mounting evidence regarding his actions, Holmes eventually began to confess details concerning multiple murders. These confessions were crucial but profoundly difficult for investigators to verify within the pressurized atmosphere of an ongoing investigation. Each admission added weight to the overall narrative, painting a picture that was both horrifyingly detailed and incredibly complex. The voluntary nature of these statements represented a transition from defense to disturbing acknowledgement in the public eye. While historians now dispute the definitive count presented during this period, the consistency with which he described his criminal enterprise solidified the gravity of the charges against him. Before Holmes faced the ultimate consequences of his crimes and subsequent legal actions, a catastrophic event struck the physical structure that anchored his life. The hotel burned down in 1895, an incineration that proved devastating to any potential archaeological investigation into the building's history. This massive conflagration served as a destructive curtain call for the alleged underworld of the murder castle. By reducing such a complex and supposedly secretive edifice to ash, the fire erased countless physical records and potential evidence regarding the passages and rooms mentioned by witnesses. The burning sealed off a vast chapter of forensic investigation, forever making confirmation of its most elaborate claims an elusive historical pursuit. Following the devastating conflagration, which destroyed physical proof of his elaborate schemes, Holmes remained entangled in the deep legal consequences of his crimes. His initial arrest stemmed specifically from charges of insurance fraud involving a partner's death, forcing him into a corner where motive and opportunity became inescapable issues for authorities. While the spectacular claims about hidden passages were rendered impossible to verify through archaeology, the established details of fraud, coupled with existing witness testimonies, maintained immense pressure on his already precarious legal standing. The prosecution leveraged every aspect of his life, building a case that moved beyond mere architectural theory into tangible financial deception and calculated criminal activity within Chicago's burgeoning underworld. Under intense interrogation and mounting legal pressure, Holmes eventually made a series of devastating confessions to authorities regarding his activities. These admissions spanned multiple acts, detailing systematic criminal behavior within the confines of his establishment during the height of the World's Fair. While these disclosures cemented numerous accusations concerning murder, they also left crucial gaps in definitive accounting. Historians today must navigate the fact that the exact number of victims he was alleged to have claimed remains heavily disputed. The forced recounting of depravity solidified the gravity of the charges against him in the eyes of the public and the judiciary alike. This confession transformed him from a rumored perpetrator into an undeniable legal defendant confessing guilt for multiple, unimaginable atrocities. The cumulative weight of the charges presented a monstrous tapestry of deceit, encompassing everything from insurance fraud to alleged homicide. The legal process struggled to reconcile the highly public nature of his crimes with the inherent ambiguity surrounding crucial pieces of physical evidence, much of which had been consumed by fire. Authorities thus continued to weave together disparate elements, the financial record of a missing partner, coupled with confessed deaths and circumstantial accounts of hidden passages. This sustained judicial focus ensured that Holmes could not easily escape accountability for either the fraud or the violence perpetrated under his roof. The sheer scope of the charges testified to the profound fear he had generated within Chicago society throughout those charged months. As the case progressed through the final stages of legal action, Holmes found himself unable to evade the ultimate reckoning mandated by the law. The combined evidence, the admissions of guilt regarding multiple murders, coupled with the charges of financial deceit concerning his business partners, built an insurmountable edifice of criminal accountability. His path seemed irreversibly set toward the most severe judicial penalty available. Every proceeding served not only as a trial of his individual actions but also as a dramatic public spectacle reflecting the moral anxieties of turn-of-the-century Chicago society itself. The law was preparing to deliver a sentence that would forever mark him within the annals of true crime history, ensuring a final, grim closure to the ongoing investigation. The culmination of the legal proceedings brought about his ultimate fate. Facing the irreversible consequences stemming from both his criminal admissions and the charges related to a partner's demise, Holmes was sentenced to death. This formal conclusion marked the abrupt and absolute end of a life inextricably linked with one of history's darkest and most sensational chapters in American law enforcement. The execution in 1896 provided final legal closure on the immediate mystery surrounding the physical location, even though it did not resolve the deeper questions concerning his exact victim count. It was the definitive, public conclusion to a series of escalating criminal accusations that had gripped Chicago for years. Today, H.H. Holmes remains a figure shrouded in conflicting accounts and persistent historical mystery. The devastating fire that consumed his hotel ensured that definitive archaeological confirmation of the most elaborate murder castle claims was impossible for future generations to achieve. Therefore, much of modern understanding relies on combining court transcripts with circumstantial evidence. The enduring debate centers not only on the scale of his alleged activities but critically, on the exact number of victims he is implicated in. His case stands as a permanent and sobering monument to both entrepreneurial ambition and ultimate criminal depravity within Chicago's storied past. This video is a dramatized recreation based on publicly reported information.